Roots was once the epic saga that shocked the entire world in 1977. But when the lights went out, the cast stepped into tragedies even more dramatic than the series itself. Sudden deaths, bitter downfalls, and even some faces who unexpectedly became Hollywood millionaires. The changes were so drastic that you won't believe how they transformed over 48 years. Let's take a look. LeVar Burton as Kunta Kinte. LeVar Burton was born on February 16, 1957, in Landstuhl, Germany. In 1977, at just 19 years old, he joined Roots and took on the role of young Kunta Kinte, the soul and emotional anchor of the entire series. His performance turned LeVar Burton into an overnight symbol for an entire generation. But behind that dazzling spotlight was a journey no young star would ever want to endure. His marriage to Stephanie Cozart in 1992, although eventually happy, was burdened by pressure in the early years. For more than a decade, he received only minor roles, criminal roles, or worse, no roles at all. Financial strain forced the couple to scale back their lifestyle, and the prolonged disappointment pushed Burton into insomnia, chronic stress, and mental exhaustion so severe he once thought he might never return to a film set. Then, in 1987, a small opportunity appeared when Burton landed the role of Geordi LaForge in Star Trek: The Next Generation. It wasn't a saving grace, but rather the only lifeline for someone standing at the edge of collapse. Yet the difficulties in his marriage and career meant Burton had to work twice as hard as everyone else just to hold on to this chance. Thanks to that persistence, he gradually rebuilt his name through Reading Rainbow and long-term projects, turning pain and loss into motivation to move forward. By 2025, Burton is 68 years old and still alive. He continues working non-stop, hosting Trivial Pursuit, developing podcasts, engaging in educational initiatives, and keeping his legacy thriving. His estimated net worth is around $8 million, a reward for a life that never followed a straight line, built instead from heartbreak, effort, and resilience. Louis Gossett Jr. as Fiddler. Louis Gossett Jr. was born on May 27, 1936, in Brooklyn, New York. In 1977, at 40 years old, he played Fiddler in Roots, the first friend and the only source of support Kunta Kinte had on American soil. Fiddler was both a teacher and an elder brother, a mirror reflecting the suffering of black people during slavery. And it was this role that earned Gossett a prestigious Emmy Award, opening the door for the greatest breakthrough of his career. But behind that spotlight was a private tragedy he hid for decades. His 3 marriages all collapsed one after another, leaving emotional wounds that only deepened with time. Years of arguments, separations, lawsuits, and loss pushed Gossett into a state of exhaustion, confusion, and a deep sense of abandonment within the very home he tried so hard to build. The turmoil in his personal life made his work unstable, and even though he won a historic Oscar for An Officer and a Gentleman in 1983, Gossett still faced racial bias. Hollywood valued awards, but not necessarily the people who received them. That coldness pushed him into the shadows. Continuous pressure and a constant loneliness led Gossett into alcoholism, then drug addiction throughout the 1980s and 1990s. His once brilliant career wavered, marked by devastating diagnoses: severe depression, immune system decline, toxic mold in his home that nearly killed him in 2001, prostate cancer in 2010, and then severe COVID-19 in 2020. Louis Gossett Jr. passed away on March 29, 2024, in Santa Monica at the age of 87, with COPD as the primary cause, accompanied by heart failure and atrial fibrillation. At the time of his death, Gossett left behind an estimated net worth of about $4 million, far less than the legacy he contributed to the arts. John Amos as older Kunta Kinte. John Amos was born on December 27, 1939, in Newark, New Jersey. In 1977, at 37 years old, he joined Roots as the older Kunta Kinte, Toby, the symbol of endurance, despite being mutilated and imprisoned for life. His performance completed the portrait of Kunta Kinte, allowing audiences to feel the depth of the character's suffering. The role brought millions of Americans to tears. Yet in real life, Amos faced wounds even harder to heal than those of his character. His first marriage to Noel Mickelson lasted 10 years, but was filled with tension due to an unstable career and irreconcilable differences. His second marriage to actress Lillian Lehman also collapsed quickly, leaving him in a long period of loneliness that made it difficult for him to stay grounded in the profession. These emotional fractures affected his focus, and it showed in his conflicts with the Good Times production team, leading to his dismissal from the very show that had brought him to fame. In the years that followed, although he still appeared in Coming to America, Die Hard 2, and The West Wing, Amos never regained his former glory. The breakdown of his family life led to a decline in his mental health, leaving him isolated, living away from his family, and battling congestive heart failure for many years. The heartbreak deepened when his son accused the nursing facility of mistreating him. John Amos ultimately passed away on August 21, 2024, at the age of 84, though the news was not made public until October 1, 2024, at the age of 84, though the news was not made public until October 1, 2024, at the age of 84, though the news was not made public until October 1, though the news was not made public until October 1, 2024, at the age of 80, shocking Hollywood. He died at Centinela Hospital from heart failure, and his body was cremated 9 days later. At his passing, he left behind an estimated net worth of about $3 million, a modest figure, yet one that bears the scars of a lifetime. Ben Vereen as Chicken George. Ben Vereen was born on October 10, 1946, in Laurinburg, North Carolina. At 31 years old, he played Chicken George, a colorful, vibrant, yet deeply tragic character who became one of the essential spirits of Roots in 1977. The role elevated Vereen to stardom, serving as a bridge between the pain of his ancestors and the fierce will to live of Black Americans. But behind the Broadway lights and television fame, his 36-year marriage quietly deteriorated. Lingering conflicts and losses that never healed, especially the tragic death of his 16-year-old daughter in a car accident in 1987, pushed Vereen into a dark, emotional abyss. That season of mourning stole not only his family, but also his sense of self. He turned to drugs, alcohol, and self-destruction as a way to escape his pain, causing the once glorious stage career built on Pippin, Sweet Charity, and legendary Broadway nights to begin to crumble. The downfall didn't stop there. In 1990, fate tested him again. A horrific accident where a truck hit him, and another car ran over him, leaving him with a broken neck, broken leg, and doctors insisting he would never walk again. The years of physical therapy that followed were both a rebirth and a battle with emotional wounds that had never healed. By 2025, Ben Vereen is still alive at age 79, continuing to perform, teach theater arts, and participate in community work as a way to make up for the losses of his life. His estimated net worth is around $6 million, not a towering fortune, but a worthy reward for someone who survived 3 brushes with death and carried a lifetime of tragedy. Madge Sinclair as Belle Reynolds. Madge Sinclair was born on April 28, 1938, in Kingston, Jamaica. In 1977, at 39 years old, she played Belle Reynolds, the resilient wife of Kunta Kinte in Roots, an iconic role that made her the first Jamaican actress ever nominated for an Emmy. Belle was both the heart of the family and a symbol of dignity in the cruel era depicted in the series. Yet Madge Sinclair's real life was far from the calm strength of the character she portrayed. Her first marriage, which lasted more than a decade, ended in heartbreak, leaving her with 2 young children and the struggle of balancing a career with the burdens of being a single mother. By 1982, Just as her career was reaching its peak with roles in Trapper John, M.D., and Coming to America, she was diagnosed with leukemia, sending her life into cycles of chemotherapy that interrupted every plan and every opportunity Hollywood offered her. Although she remarried and had a partner who stood by her side, the illness increasingly strained her mental and emotional health. The years spent running between film sets and hospital rooms helped keep her spirit alive, yet slowly drained her strength. But Sinclair did not give up. She continued working, voiced Sarabi in The Lion King, reunited with John Amos in Coming to America, and took on critically praised television roles even as leukemia ravaged her body. Her perseverance kept her career shining brightly, even as her health declined. On December 20th, 1995, Madge Sinclair passed away at the age of 57 after 13 relentless years battling leukemia. Her net worth at the time was not clearly disclosed, but is estimated to have been under $2 million. The true value she left behind was the legacy of Belle Reynolds, Robert Reed as Dr. William Reynolds. Robert Reed was born on October 19, 1932, in Highland Park, Illinois. In 1977, at 44 years old, he played Dr. William Reynolds, the cold plantation owner in Roots, a role completely opposite to his beloved image as gentle father Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch. His appearance in the middle episodes of Roots showcased the remarkable range of an actor trained in Shakespearean technique. But behind the lights, Reed lived through a broken marriage and a lifelong secret that drained him emotionally. He was a gay man in a Hollywood era when even a rumor could destroy an entire career. The pressure to hide his identity made him tense, quick-tempered, and increasingly trapped in loneliness. Even with brilliant performances in Rich Man, Poor Man, Medical Center, and Roots, Reed was always acting two roles simultaneously, one on screen and one in real life, just to survive. The internal conflict pulled him deeper into depression, leaving him working in a state of anger he could never fully express. As he aged, living a double life became a wound that never healed. His career was repeatedly disrupted by internal conflicts, clashes with producers, and a body that grew weaker each year. In 1991, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. Months later, doctors discovered he was HIV positive. People often said loneliness consumed him long before illness did. Sadly, Robert Reed passed away on May 12, 1992, at the age of 59, from complications of colon cancer, with HIV listed on his death certificate as a contributing factor. He was laid to rest at Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie, Illinois. At the time of his death, Reed left behind an estimated net worth of about $5 million, much of it from The Brady Bunch, a show he both resented and felt grateful for throughout his life. Leslie Uggams as Kizzy Reynolds. Leslie Uggams was born on May 25, 1943, in Harlem, New York. In 1977, at 33 years old, she played Kizzy Reynolds in Roots, the strong-willed daughter of Kunta Kinte, a role that demanded deep emotional intensity and powerful inner strength. It was Kizzy who carved Leslie's name into the history of American television, earning her an Emmy nomination and opening a new chapter in a career that had begun when she was just 6 years old. But to reach that triumphant moment, Uggams had to endure pressures that few women of color at the time could imagine. Her marriage to Graham Pratt, a white man, has lasted more than 60 years, but in the beginning, it trapped her in a whirlpool of prejudice, anonymous hate letters, and a society not yet ready to accept love across racial lines. The tension made Uggams consider giving up many times, but she stayed, protecting her family while fighting to keep her career from collapsing. Every performance, from Hallelujah Baby to Backstairs at the White House, was her way of pushing back against stereotypes, proving that she deserved to stand under the spotlight. Decades of pressure took a toll on Uggams' mental health. She carried the weight of family concerns, racial discrimination in the industry, and the burden of keeping a long-running career stable. But despite everything, she persisted. And in her 70s, she exploded back into the mainstream with her role as Blind Al in Deadpool 1 and 2. In 2025, Leslie Uggams is 82 years old and the oldest surviving principal cast member of Roots. She continues acting, appearing in television projects like Empire and Fallout, and still attends artistic events regularly as a symbol of endurance and courage. With an estimated net worth of around $10 million, Uggams lives peacefully with the husband she has been with for more than half a century, still carrying the joyful spark of the little girl who once sang on the Apollo stage. Olivia Cole as Matilda. Olivia Cole was born on November 26, 1942, in Memphis, Tennessee. At 35 years old, she played Matilda, the wife of Chicken George in Roots in 1977, a heavily featured character and the emotional center of the series' latter half. This role earned her a prestigious Emmy Award, making her only the second black woman in history to win in that category. Yet that success opened the door to a different tragedy. Hollywood at the time was not generous to black women, and the Emmy win caused Cole to be boxed in to suffering, hardship-driven roles. The lack of diverse opportunities slowly strained her marriage to actor Richard Venture. The two endured years of distance due to unpredictable schedules, financial pressure, and the weight of expectations placed on Cole after Roots. The tension drove her into emotional exhaustion, and she often contemplated leaving Hollywood entirely to regain balance in her life. As her career failed to expand the way she hoped, Cole gradually stepped away from the spotlight, taking smaller roles in Coming Home, Backstairs at the White House, and First Sunday. Each role reminded her that, despite her talent, she was fighting a system that resisted diversity. The stalled career took a toll on her health and spirit. After her divorce in 1984, Cole became more withdrawn and distanced herself from Hollywood. Sadly, Olivia Cole died on January 19, 2018, at her home in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, at the age of 75, from a sudden heart attack. She passed away just 31 days after her ex-husband's death. Her body was cremated according to her wishes, and her net worth, estimated at under $2 million, was modest compared to the artistic legacy she left behind. Georg Stanford Brown as Tom Harvey. Georg Stanford Brown was born on June 24, 1943, in Havana, Cuba. In 1977, at 34 years old, he appeared in Roots as Tom Harvey, the great-grandson of Kunta Kinte, and the bridge linking generations of enslaved people who endured suffering on the journey toward freedom. Brown portrayed Tom Harvey with calmness, resolve, and deep humanity, turning him into one of the most emotionally powerful figures in the latter part of Roots. But behind that gentle light on screen was a marriage that suffocated him more than once. Brown had been married to actress Tyne Daly. When he began gaining recognition through The Rookies and later Roots, the differences in their work schedules and the heavy, invisible pressure placed on them made their marriage increasingly tense. Endless arguments left him unfocused, and it affected his work during the early episodes he directed for Hill Street Blues. The cracks didn't stop at his family life. The emotional pressure often left Brown so drained that he had to step back from major projects despite his clear talent and vision. Even when Cagney and Lacey, the series he directed that later earned him an Emmy, began to succeed, he couldn't fully enjoy it. Their marriage ended in 1990, leaving behind long periods of silence and a decline in his mental health that forced Brown to spend years healing instead of continuing the rising acting career he once had. He later admitted that this period was the deepest cut of my life. By 2025, Georg Stanford Brown is 82 and still alive, living more quietly but firmly rooted in directing, the field that helped him rediscover himself after the storms of marriage. He occasionally mentors television projects and lives peacefully with his grandchildren. His net worth, around $3 to $4 million, reflects a lifetime of dedication that he sees as a late compensation for emotional losses that never fully healed. Chuck Connors as Tom Moore. Chuck Connors was born on April 10, 1921 in Brooklyn, New York. At 56 years old, he stepped into Roots in 1977 as Tom Moore, a brutal enslaver who appears in the early chapters of the story. His character served as the doorway through which audiences witnessed the full cruelty of the slavery era, and Connors, with his cold gaze and authoritative presence, made the role so frightening that anyone who watched the series could never forget him. Yet behind that hardened exterior was a private life full of turbulence. 3 consecutive marriages collapsed, leaving him with lingering insecurity and disappointment as his blunt temperament and long periods away for work gradually eroded trust with his partners. The emotional strain left him exhausted every time he returned to set, even as he continued to receive praise for his standout work in The Rifleman. Those fractures eventually pulled Connors into a cycle of self-destruction. He turned to cigarettes as a way to soothe the chaos in his mind, and that habit soon became the reason his health spiraled downward. Illness struck quickly. Heavy breathing and recurring coughing fits made it increasingly difficult for him to accept major roles. On November 10, 1992, Chuck Connors took his final breath in Los Angeles due to lung cancer at the age of 71, and he was laid to rest at San Fernando Mission Cemetery in quiet mourning. After nearly half a century devoted to both sports and Hollywood, he left behind a net worth of about $5 million. But what remains most deeply is the story of a man who appeared strong on screen, yet carried profound wounds behind the curtain. Linda Day George as Mrs. Reynolds. Linda Day. George was born on December 11, 1944, in San Marcos, Texas. In 1977, at 32 years old, she played Mrs. Reynolds in Roots, appearing in central episodes about life on the plantation and reflecting the world of Southern women during the turbulent slave-era South. With a gentle face hiding deep unease, Linda made the role more haunting than its limited screen time would suggest. But her real life was marked by tragedy far beyond anything she portrayed. Her marriage to Christopher George, her co-star, soulmate, and the man she loved profoundly, defined much of her career and personal life. Though they worked together on countless films, the constant filming, emotional dependency, and fear of losing professional momentum created a cloud of quiet tension over their home. Linda gradually became exhausted from trying to be both an actress and the emotional anchor of a marriage already full of challenges. When Christopher suddenly died of a heart attack in 1983, her entire world collapsed in a single afternoon. She nearly withdrew from Hollywood for 3 decades, appearing only in occasional small roles before disappearing again. The lingering grief pushed her mental health downward, and a once shining career slowly slipped into the shadows in silence. By 2025, Linda Day George is 80 years old and still alive, but living very quietly, mostly with family and occasionally accepting interviews. Although she announced a return to acting in 2021, she has not taken on any major projects since. Her net worth is estimated at around $3 million, most of it earned during her peak years in Mission, Impossible, and the films she made with her husband before tragedy struck. Ralph Waite as Slater. Ralph Waite was born on June 22, 1928, in White Plains, New York. In 1977, at 48 years old, he appeared in Roots as Slater, a white man who directly witnesses the brutality of the plantation slave system. The role was not long, but it carried immense emotional weight, reflecting the coldness of that era through Waite's somber, contemplative expressions. Behind his gentle, fatherly appearance, however, was a private life marked by far more pain than fans ever imagined. 3 marriages collapsed, and the most devastating blow, the death of his eldest daughter from leukemia in 1964, left him with emotional wounds that never fully healed. Even during his most successful years on The Waltons, the role that made him an icon, he was silently suffocating under the pressure of maintaining the public image of America's perfect TV father, only to return home each day feeling emotionally drained. These emotional fractures repeatedly stalled his career. When his mental state weakened, Waite struggled to focus on set and missed major opportunities after Roots and On the Nickel, even as he continued delivering strong performances rooted in morality and sincerity. The lingering emotional pain followed him like a shadow, leaving him visibly weary, and his health declined quickly as he entered old age. On February 13, 2014, Ralph Waite passed away in Palm Desert, California, from natural causes at the age of 85. After more than half a century in the industry, he left behind a net worth of around $3 million. Modest but reflective of a career defined by quiet dedication and private battles he rarely spoke about. Edward Asner as Captain Davies. Edward Asner was born on November 15, 1929 in Kansas City, Missouri. In 1977, at 47 years old, he appeared in Roots as Captain Thomas Davies, the captain of the slave ship Lord Ligonier, a man torn between conscience and profit. Even though he appeared only in the opening episode, Asner shook audiences with the rawness and brutality of that era. Yet behind the spotlight of one of the most familiar faces in American television was a personal life marked by repeated fractures. His 2 divorces from Nancy Sykes and Cindy Gilmore left him with lingering emotional wounds, as work consumed his time and his blunt, hot-tempered personality often pushed family life into tension. The heights of his career on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Lou Grant required sacrifices, and stability in his marriage became one of them. This prolonged strain also took a toll on his health. Relentless work, heavy political activism, and public clashes with producers left Asner under constant stress. Although he continued to win numerous Emmy Awards and remained a television legend, he lived for many years with heart issues and the invisible mental pressures that made his later life far from restful. On August 29, 2021, Edward Asner passed away in Tarzana, California, of natural causes at the age of 91, closing a career that spanned more than 400 roles, an achievement few actors ever reach. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $10 million, much of it built from a vast 6-decade legacy in American television. Vic Morrow as Ames. Vic Morrow was born on February 14, 1929 in Bronx, New York. In 1977, at 48 years old, he portrayed Ames, the cruel prison guard who appears during Kunta Kinte's captivity. Morrow delivered that brutality with such piercing intensity that the set reportedly fell silent whenever he stepped into character, and the performance became one of the most unsettling moments of the series. But Morrow's private life was even more turbulent and painful than the character he portrayed. 2 marriages fell apart, leaving deep emotional scars, including a broken relationship with his daughter Jennifer Jason Leigh, who later changed her surname to escape the overwhelming weight of her father's reputation. Family tension, combined with the burden of being typecast as the violent villain, pushed Morrow into chronic exhaustion. Even though he had once shined in Combat and Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, he struggled to reclaim the momentum of his early career. In an effort to resurrect his career, Morrow accepted a role in Twilight Zone, the movie. But filming this movie pushed him to his limits. The intense pressure of dangerous action scenes, combined with his long-standing emotional instability, left him so worn down that close friends such as Gossett Jr. later said he carried sadness in every step he took. Yet he kept working. On the night of July 23, 1982, Vic Morrow was killed in a horrific helicopter accident on the film set, dying instantly at age 53, along with 2 child actors. The tragedy sparked legal battles that shook Hollywood for years. Morrow was laid to rest at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, where his tombstone reads, "I loved him as Dad." His net worth at the time of his death was around $2 million, but what remains most deeply is the tragic story of a great talent consumed by past wounds, typecasting, and profound loneliness. Sandy Duncan as Missy Ann Reynolds. Sandy Duncan was born on February 20th, 1946 in New London, Texas. In 1977, at just 31 years old, she played Missy Ann Reynolds in Roots, the gentle young mistress who teaches Kizzy to read, yet is too weak to stand against the cruelty of her own family. It was this internal conflict that made her role one of the rare emotional bright spots in a story filled with pain. But Sandy's real life was far from as gentle as the smile she brought to the screen. Her first marriage to actor Bruce Scott collapsed simply because her career shone too brightly, making the man beside her feel overshadowed. And just as Sandy reached the peak of her success, she faced a devastating blow, a benign tumor behind her left eye that required emergency surgery. The aftermath left her blind in one eye, a fear that could shatter the spirit of any stage performer. Instead of stopping, Sandy had to simultaneously heal from divorce and relearn how to perform, trying to maintain balance on stage when only one eye could see the world in front of her. That shock eventually pulled apart her second marriage to Dr. Thomas Calcaterra, the man who had once saved her life but could not save their home. She was expected to settle down and become a doctor's wife, while Sandy's heart belonged to the blazing lights of Broadway. The clash between her artistic soul and the rigid expectations of family life drained her, left her sleepless, yet pushed her even higher with Peter Pan and the Hogan family. In 2025, Sandy Duncan is 79 years old, living peacefully in Connecticut with her third husband, Don Correa, and their two sons. She still occasionally appears on local stages and at special events. Her net worth is estimated at around $5 million, earned from a lifetime of battling illness, divorce, and the undying pull of the stage lights. Nearly half a century has passed, and the cast of Roots has scattered down paths no one could have predicted. But which story shocked you the most? The tragic deaths or the unexpected comebacks? Leave a comment below, hit like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in these extraordinary journeys.